Have you ever stopped to think about how the food you eat, actually becomes the energy you use to think, to move, to do literally everything? Well, today, we're diving deep into one of the most amazing, fundamental processes of life itself, metabolism.
Now really think about it. That salad or sandwich you had for lunch, right this second, it's feeling the blink of your eyes, the beat of your heart, everything. So how in the world does that transformation actually happen? Let's get into it.
The easiest way to think about metabolism is to picture your body as this huge, bustling chemical economy. It's this non-stop cycle of building things up and breaking things down, all just to keep the entire system running smoothly.
Okay, so here's a really important distinction. Metabolism isn't just digestion. Digestion is what's happening in your stomach. Metabolism, though, that's what happens after that, inside every single one of your cells. It's the grand total of every chemical reaction that's keeping you alive right now.
So this body economy of yours has two main departments. The first is anabolism. You can think of this as the construction sector. This is where your body takes smaller bits and pieces and builds them into bigger, more complex things, like making new muscle. And just like any construction project, it costs something. It uses up energy. And on the flip side, you've got catabolism. This is the demolition crew, the energy production plant. This is where your body takes those big molecules, like the sugar from your lunch, and just smashes them apart. And what happens when you demolish something? You get a massive release of energy.
And here you can see this perfect, beautiful balance. Anabolism, the building part, uses energy, the sciencey term is endergonic. And catabolism, the breaking down part, releases that energy. That's exergonic. So basically, the energy you get from demolishing stuff pays for all the new construction projects. It's this incredibly efficient, self-powering system. It's just, wow.
Okay, so if catabolism is releasing all this energy, how does the construction side of things, or really any part of the cell, actually use it? Well, every economy needs a universal currency, right? And in our bodies, that currency is a tiny molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. That number right there, that's the amount of power packed into a single molecule of ATP. Whenever a cell needs to get some work done, it just breaks one of ATP's chemical bonds, and pop, out comes this perfect little packet of energy. It's like a tiny, rechargeable battery that powers every single action inside your cells. So where does ATP fit in the grand scheme of things? Well, it's a high-energy compound for sure. But what's really interesting is that it's not the most powerful one out there. And that's exactly what makes it so perfect for the job. It's like the ultimate middleman. It can take a huge charge from the more powerful molecules and then hand out that energy in smaller, more manageable amounts. That versatility makes it the ideal universal currency.
So, where is all this ATP cash being printed? For that, we've got to zoom way, way down, deep inside the cell, to these specialized power plants of the body, the mitochondria. This is where the real magic happens, the final and most efficient stage of making energy.
Now, a mitochondrion has a few parts, an outer skin, a gel-like center, but the real star of the show is its wrinkly inner membrane. You have to think of this membrane as a high-security wall with a very strict bouncer. It is incredibly picky about what it lets in and out. And that strictness, it's absolutely crucial for building up the power to create all that ATP.
So how does this inner membrane pull off this amazing trick? Well, it's home to a microscopic assembly line, known officially as the electron transport chain. This is it. This is where the raw energy from our food gets converted into ATP on an industrial scale. So picture this assembly line. It's got 5 main workstations, these big protein complexes, and they're all bolted right into that inner membrane. They all have to work together in a very precise order to wrangle the power out of these tiny little particles called electrons. The whole thing works like a microscopic relay race. Little electrons get passed from one protein to the next down the line. And at certain points in this race, as the electron gets handed off, there's a burst of energy. And that burst is what gets used to crank out those precious ATP molecules. All right, let's break down the race. First, a special molecule called NADH shows up at the starting line, complex I, and drops off some high-energy electrons. Then, a little shuttle bus called coenzyme Q picks them up and carries them over to the next stage. From there, they just get handed off down a series of other proteins until they hit the finish line. And at the very end, they combine with the oxygen you just breathed in to make water. You can kind of see here how everything is organized to just funnel those electrons down the chain. The final destination is always oxygen.
And this, right here, is why we call it the respiratory chain. It's the microscopic reason your body needs to breathe moment to moment.
So that's the assembly line hard at work. But what's the actual payoff? How efficient is this whole operation? Let's zoom back out for a second and actually count the energy.
Get this, as the electrons from just one starting molecule run that entire race, they release a staggering amount of raw power, over 52,000 calories of energy. I mean, that is a huge amount of energy to be let loose in such a tiny, tiny space.
But, and this is the key, not all of that energy actually gets captured. Out of that massive total, only about 21,900 calories of it are successfully stored away in the chemical bonds of our ATP currency.
So the whole process is about 40% efficient at storing energy, which for a biological system is actually unbelievable. So what happens to the other 60%? Is it just wasted? Not at all. It's released as heat. And that heat is exactly what maintains your stable 98.6 degree body temperature. The exhaust from your energy factory is what's keeping you warm. How cool is that?
This entire process is just so elegant, so efficient, and it is absolutely essential for us to live. But it's also incredibly delicate. So what happens when someone throws a wrench in the works? Well, certain poisons act like saboteurs. They target and shut down specific workstations on the assembly line. For instance, really nasty stuff like cyanide and carbon monoxide, they specifically block complex 4, the very last handoff in the race. And when that happens, the entire energy factory just grinds to a catastrophic halt.
So when you really think about it, this unbelievable chemical dance is happening trillions of times, every single second, inside your body, turning your lunch into life itself. It just goes to show how interconnected and fragile this whole process is. And it leaves you with a pretty serious question. What are the consequences when even one tiny link in this incredible chain fails?